Hello, and welcome to the Sovereign Collective podcast, where we bring you real, raw truth for your self-empowerment. I'm your host, Sasha Calavoda, and I believe that you can stand on your own 2 feet, but that you don't have to do it alone. I love learning from people who continually strive to raise the bar, to go against mainstream thinking, and who dare to question the general consensus. People who risk being ridiculed or even risk the loss of their professional status as they bravely question the common narratives and challenge the rest of us to expand our minds and to reconsider what we think we already know. Join me in learning how to take control of your health and your mind so that you can have the energy to think more clearly and the confidence to step up and take responsibility for all aspects of your life. We promise to never censor here because I believe you are strong enough to hear the real, raw truth to make up your own mind. If you like what you find here at the Sovereign Collective podcast, then please share with your friends and family. And please also consider making a small donation on my Patreon page so that I can continue to bring you amazing content so that we can all create a better future. I so appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. And now, on to the show. Hi, y'all. This is Sasha here with 2 quick announcements before we get on to our interview for today. First of all, if you are looking for quality supplements, quality tonic herbs, some specialty food items, and you're in and around Calgary, then please go check out Lotus Herbal Health, a great family-run store that has 2 locations in Calgary. You can find them at lotusherbalhealth.ca to find out where their locations are, or you can shop online and they will pretty much deliver anywhere. So quality supplements, tonic herbs, great staff. Check out lotusherbalhealth.ca. Secondly, I want to announce the relaunch of my program called Your Conscious Pregnancy and Parenting Guide, which consists of experts in their fields around the world on consciousness and parenting and education and nutrition and dentistry and homeopathy and more. This is a program I created after my son was born about 10 years ago, a little bit more than that. And I am now very concerned after the events of 2020 for our future generations. And I believe the time is now for conscious parenting and for conscious parents to rise up and take back our pregnancies and our births and our parenting and the resilience of our children and of future generations. The time is now. We change the course of history by changing the course of our future generations. And we do that by consciously raising them, consciously birthing them, consciously conceiving them, feeding them good food, and taking back the responsibility of raising healthy, well-adjusted, robust people. Resilience. It's time to build resilience. So please go check out sovereigncollective.org/get the guide, sovereigncollective.org/get the guide, and you will be able to check out all of the amazing material in there. And for now, at the time of this recording, it is at the ridiculous price of $47 US. It will be at that price for a little while longer, but not for too long. So this is January 2021 when I'm recording this. So if you are hearing this much later, it won't be that price anymore. But if you've heard this earlier, it is that price. And it is well worth it. It's time for us to understand how our worldviews are formed, how our self-views are formed, and how to impact that and how that impacts the society on a whole. So check it out, sovereigncollective.org/get the guide. And now on to the show. Hello, everyone. This is Sasha here with another interview for the Sovereign Collective podcast. And my guest again today is Elena Tonetti-Vladimirova of birthintobeing.com and the director of the amazing movie Birth as We Know It. If you haven't seen it, I don't care if you're not having kids, if you're pregnant, if you're thinking about getting pregnant, if you are a grandparent, it doesn't matter. This movie is amazing and it's applicable at any age and stage because it explains why the world is the way it is and why we are the way we are. There's so much insight into that movie. So it's amazing. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. So highly recommend it. So today we're going to talk about the original interview that we talked about. We talked about birth trauma and healing the birth trauma and the power of the birthing process and the quality of birth and how, as Elena puts it, people making has such an impact on the quality of people making has such an impact on the quality of our civilization. And it's huge. So I think we need to really pay attention to that to help create the world that I think many of us would love to see. So today we're going to talk to Elena about her views on the current situation and where we're at and how that relates to, other times in history and just get some insights about where we're at from her point of view. So thank you, Elena, for joining me once again. Appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. I am happy to have this opportunity. And today I wanted to speak about our history. Like, what does it have to do with us right now? Well, it does. It does, because history has its way of repeating itself. And we are unfortunately not learning. We're forgetting everything so
No, we're not.
fast. Yeah. So, what I will bring to your attention has been happening in every century, on every continent, in every country. But I will not go really far. I will start with one of the most significant event in our recorded history um, that happened in France in August of 1572. Catherine de' Medici was running the court with her husband, Henri, of course. Um, at that time, France was divided. Um, the population was either Catholic or Protestant. Given the fact that they were all French and they were all Christian, that division between slight way of interpretation of how exactly we worship Jesus Christ led to unbelievable slaughter and genocide against half of the population, basically, in France overnight. It was called historically the Night of Saint Bartholomew. That's in English, okay. Um, it sounds different in French. But what happened then was that one tiny action led to just a slaughter overnight. Um, to be more specific, um, Catholics were fighting for power against Huguenot, Calvinist Protestants at that time, that were a strong presence and a lot of influence. There was a lot of wealthy people, aristocracy, um, and one of the very influential national heroes, um, Admiral Gaspard de Coligny. So it was the time when the Admiral Gaspard de Coligny was a very popular national military figure. He was a hero, he was very sophisticated, charismatic leader who had a lot of influence in France. And Catherine saw him as her competition, basically. So she ordered his assassination and eliminated her competition, but also she blamed Huguenot on in that action. So good Catholics, one of which was the admiral, he was Catholic. So Catholics got so upset, enraged, activated with their hero, their leader, assassinated by Protestants, that the night was established when they all got up and just killed everybody. In one night, Paris lost 6,000 lives, which in that size, in that time, was basically half of the population.
Wow.
Uh, which means that it was neighbors waking up in the middle of the night and storming into their neighbor's house and slaughtering their neighbors, their bakers, their maids, their friends of their children. It was really that insane that all of a sudden good Catholics would get up and become so massively charged with the bloodthirsty action out of nowhere, because they really didn't have anything against those neighbors and bakers and seamstresses that just worshipped Christ slightly differently
Mm-hmm.
than they. They were friends, they were neighbors, they were living together as a community. And all of a sudden, there was this voice that told them they are your enemy. And just like that, they were willing to act on that. And it didn't stop there. It spilled out of Paris. The slaughter continued for months until France became purely Catholic. It was really a big event in human history that showed this mechanism of mass hysteria to its finest, how easily it's triggered, and how logic just goes out the window. It doesn't take much to override common sense, override habits of certain communal behaviors, override even morals and behaviors, because Christianity is the opposite of what happened, right? But yet it just was part of our history that we cannot cross out. We can forget about it, but then we keep reliving it over and over and over because it keeps repeating. That mass hysteria is so close. It doesn't take much to invoke it. So I invite everyone to be really vigilant and not let the fear reign, because all of it is driven by fear-based explanations, mentality, slogans, just generally be so misplaced in out of your own integrity and your own power that somebody is telling you kill him, and that's enough. Like what happened, another big event that had enormous ripple effect all over the globe, Russian Revolution 1917, when a small group of criminal element that called themselves Bolsheviks, it was a truly small group, but how did they take over 11 time zones of Russia? Russia is 11 time zones.
11 time zones in Russia?
It used to be when it was Soviet Union. Now
Right.
it's only 9 left. But yeah, but how is a small group of basically the not good guys, how did they raise their hand against this deep, rich, established culture? It was a very strong way of life. It was, it was a very established cultural, moral, religious, domestic, economic, very strong way of life. And all of a sudden, they stirred up and they played on this lowest instincts, on let's fight for our freedom. Let's fight for our freedom. We don't want to depend on the existing cultural norms. We want our freedom. And what happened, the small ripples were growing bigger and bigger until there was a civil war, basically, between the people who were trying to protect the existing way of life and the anarchy that the Bolsheviks were bringing. So because they were really outnumbered, they used the same kind of approach as Catherine de' Medici. They would kill some they were called the Whites, the army of the Tsar, the state army was called the Whites, and the Bolsheviks were called the Reds. So it was the war between the whites and the reds. So the reds would kill the whites, take their uniforms, come to some small town or village and destroy it, rape the women, burn the buildings, but not the people. They would just do horrible things, and then they would leave and then come back in their armies of reds and save the day. They would stage that they're rescuing the people from the atrocities that they committed earlier, but in different uniforms. And it all came out when the archives were opened up. They were sealed all this time, but in the perestroika, in general chaos of the Kremlin going from one hand to another, in the 90s, all the archives kind of spilled out and got deciphered and opened up, and the truth about what actually happened there became public knowledge. So they would come as rescuers, and people would say, please stay, protect us. In the name of their safety, they were willing to keep the criminals ruling them. And it was that moment when the Reds would patronizingly say, okay, we will stay, but you will have to give us everything you have for that. You know, as in complete contradiction to what they were promising, you know, let's free ourselves so
Right.
we can have what we have and not have to give it to aristocracy. And now they were saying, okay, we'll protect you from them, but we'll take it. Thank you very much.
So what makes people not see that and fall for it? Like that's what's just blowing my mind right now. It's like they get things like it's hidden in plain sight. Like they're it's right there and they fall for it. What do
Exactly,
they fall for?
exactly, over and over and over. And the key to that answer is education, knowing the history, understanding the bigger picture, being able to think for yourself, being able to learn, being able to question authority, being able to see the underlying, like to read between the lines. And for that, you need to just be taught to think. And what happens, for example, here in the United States, when my daughter was going to school, I was watching in horror the curriculum of the American school shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. Every year, there was less and less. And going into Russian school, I knew how much the student can take in one school year. And when I would look at her curriculum for the coming year, I would be like, there is a mistake. Where is the rest of it? You know, and it was mind-blowing because from her curriculum was eliminated the history of the world, only history of the United States left, which is not much, geography of the world, only geography of the United States, literature of the world, only literature of the United States, the languages, the historical cultures, the history of religions, of everything that I had in my school. There was just remnants of that. And if people only know what's around them, there is no ability to create a context of any events, then what TV says goes. It's really difficult to put in perspective the any kind of events. Put the dots together, you need to have a bigger picture. So the 9/11, when it happened in 2001, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that reminds me of something.
There we go again.
And when I said something on that day, I was saying that doesn't look right. It's because if it was what they say it would be so different. If it was a really terrorist attack, then they would go for maximum damage. That means they wouldn't attack at 8 in the morning. They would attack like when all the big guns are present, right? When all the important people are there, which is much later in the day, when there would be a lot more people. That was the first clue. But then, more and more was coming out. And it's like, wow, that's a totally staged event. And when we look at what followed, how American people willingly gave out most of their constitutional rights following that event, willingly, in the name of their safety.
Yeah.
They were surrendering their rights, and United States had unprecedented levels of surveillance and search allowances and all kinds of, we lost a lot of freedoms. And it, having said that, again, that pales in comparison to what's happening right now with this lockdown, with all the crazy stuff happening in the world.
All right. Yeah.
It's like,
You have to laugh. Oh, or we're gonna cry.
how do you even begin to put the two and two together if you're listening to only one channel, if you're listening to something that you're habitually entrusting with your source of news. So it's the summary of it all is that we never really have the fullness of information. The people are never informed about the complete picture. There is just no way, because the complete picture is so multi-layered and multi-dimensional and so big and so unsightly, I might say. Because it's always, no matter what kind of disaster is happening, there's a handful of people who become multi-billionaires and millions of lives are destroyed. It's the same dynamic, but it's just staged into different stories and different scenarios and different ways of interpreting it. Because when the United States invaded Middle East after 9/11, all the country songs, the singers were singing, our boys are fighting for our freedom. What?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, how did our oil get under their sand?
Strange, yeah.
And somehow it didn't raise too many questions at the time.
It's shocking how few it did. It was shocking. Like so many, like a building crumbles instantly under a supposed attack, perfectly aligned, right? And then another one goes, and then another one goes that wasn't even touched by a blade. Like the it's the brainwashing. It just shows how deep it is, because you can have a ludicrous situation out there and most of the population doesn't question it, and that's what is blowing my mind, like right
And
now.
that is
Yeah.
how they don't question it. That is how, all those, our boys, they were told to march there and kill and be killed, and there was no objections. They were heroes. It's everything is so upside down
Down.
in the official line, the official historical interpretation of what's happening right now. 2020 is hindsight, and well, 2020.
Well, it's interesting. We're talking about theater and the acting and upside down. Just look at today is which didn't even plan it. It's the day of the inauguration. another big theater taking place right now, which is, I just can't even believe it's gotten to that point. So in your mind, what do you see? What are some of the tactics that you see that are used repeatedly? Like there's people need to start recognizing patterns. There's patterns to all of this, right?
Right.
There are
The
tactics that
patterns,
are used because they work.
yeah, and the patterns are give some slogans, some easy to remember and digest and repeat phrases that become like mantras. What I noticed with this pandemic, it's the mantra is science and facts, science and
Mm,
facts. The
yes.
statistics, the numbers are rising. The the doomsday is coming. In and if you ask any professional in the field of statistics, they would tell you firsthand that statistics depends on who is paying for it,
Mm,
who is counting, and how is counting. So with the same situation, you can get any variety of numbers as an outcome, depending on where you put the margins.
mhm. The crazy thing is, though, right now, the numbers don't even seem to matter. There's no mathematical evidence of a pandemic, but the
Exactly,
numbers don't
exactly.
matter. We talk
But
about science, but they don't matter. It doesn't matter.
right, but when you present it like the way it's presented here, that numbers are rising, and that's the thing. When statistics can be counted, you can count it within this margins or this margins or this margins, and all the outcome numbers would be real, true numbers.
Mhm.
You can't argue with that. They are real numbers. Here is the document. But when it comes to health and human body, numbers cannot possibly reflect the real situation because all people are different, their pre-existing conditions are different, the causes of death are different, and those numbers that are justifying this crazy lockdown, they're really not holding water. But the numbers have some kind of magical effect. They're repeating like mantra, self-hypnotic mantra, that numbers are rising, numbers are rising.
Mhm.
And um, and yes, numbers are rising. First of all, the population is rising, uh, the numbers of the population. So every year we have more deaths. And even those numbers that we have now, if we count within the specific parameters, more real parameters, they're still not exceeding the normal numbers of some kind of seasonal flu. We had epidemics of seasonal flu, of pneumonia, of grippe, of all kinds of viruses. We always had viruses. We never had time when viruses were not um, around us to upgrade our nervous system on a regular basis. That's the thing. I think that the viruses exist to um, spike the immune system upgrades, that we have to have some exposure to um, new elements to create the new microbiome within the system that allows us to evolve and survive as a species. Because okay, this virus, but it's not the last one.
Yeah.
There will be more new one coming, and they will be stronger and stronger because they evolve as we evolve our ability to fight it. They evolve within their own world too. They have their own self-organizing intelligence, and they want to survive too. The legitimate species on this planet. We can't just kill all the viruses.
It's
It's not
impossible that you can't even, that's a losing. It's, we have this idea that we can outsmart nature, whether this is natural or whatever, created in a lab, but we have this feeling we can outsmart, kill. It's like, rather than living in that harmony with and together, right? It's we just have this warring mentality.
yeah, and I think the majority of people never knew how many people are actually dying every year.
Mm.
Every year we had, when the pandemic just, well, pandemic, so-called pandemic started in March, the first thing I did was Googled what is a normal death toll from flus and pneumonias. And I got answers that the norm was from 250,000 to 600,000 a year
Mm-hmm. Globally or
globally. Yeah.
globally? Okay.
So that is a very big range.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
250, 600, right? And when it was 600 in the previous years, nobody screamed pandemic, nobody stopped all life, all businesses, all schools and sports and cultural life. It was just a normal spike, and it was, people are sick, people were dying. 600,000 people would die from it, and life goes on. Nobody stopped for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's it's probably this year is exceeding 600,000, because there is also that element of mass hysteria when we get sick just because we kind of give our consent to getting sick, because everybody's supposed to get sick. There is that mass hypnosis into the state of fear and danger that makes us very susceptible.
It
If
puts us
you're
into that,
sitting
it puts it into the field, right? It's in that field, and that's that resonance. Yeah.
if you're sitting alone in your house in a mask watching that TV that just
I can imagine.
blasts you with all the horrors and numbers and statistics and footage from um, how they're just um, shipping the dead bodies everywhere. And I looked for it exactly 10 seconds, and I felt like it was trying to alter my perception. And
Absolutely.
I walked out of the room. But there are people who watch it many hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a very strong um, infection going on from mass media that is a real infection to make it look much bigger than it is. And I know that I am probably upsetting a lot of people who have loved ones dying, and I am sorry that people are losing their loved ones. I am just, my heart goes out to them. I wish they didn't. I wish they knew how to protect themselves and withstand that whatever got them. But that's the thing about humans. We are mortal. We are dying every single year of our life, and all the thousands of years before us, we were dying.
We were never not dying, right? Never. Yes.
Well, the bodies are dying.
The body,
The,
of course.
the, the
Yes. Yes.
bodies are mortal,
Yeah.
and we all have expiration date at some point, and there is no way um, out of it, really. It's like it's gonna happen, and but it we still have a lot of voting power in a way we go, and and the quality of life that we are capable of achieving. Because when I see somebody driving alone inside their car in a mask, I just quietly take a breath and send them my love, because it means that this person is in so much fear, alone in their car in a mask.
Mm-hmm.
That's really an incredible compromise of their immunity, because you're breathing into the petri dish. Basically, the mask is the petri dish,
Yeah.
and breathing your own exhaust is not healthy, and people who are just hiding in their homes and not allowing themselves to go into the sunshine, into like the mountains, to breathe, to pump the energy in the lungs and the body, to eliminate the ashes from the tissues and cleanse the blood, and of eating good diet, resting, sleeping, because I know some people who are completely letting go right now because they don't have any schedule, and they're just sitting alone watching TV, binging on ice cream, and switching, sleeping in during the day, watching the news at night. And it's,
Mhm.
I just want to say, hey, what I want to say is that there are many different realities. That is the nature of reality, that it's very multi-layered, very multi-dimensional. There is nothing that is just carved in stone, that this is the science and facts. Any truly science person knows that there is nothing carved in stone in science,
Mhm.
and that facts change as we change our perspective on how we extract those facts and our capacity for extraction of those facts. So, what's true now is never true tomorrow, or, or the day after tomorrow. It's really important to understand. Well, you're asking me, and I am sharing my point of view. I am not saying that that's the truth. I am saying it's my truth, and every person has their own truth, and that is exactly the nature of reality. I personally, with everything that I am, don't believe in objective reality. That there is some kind of reality that is, it is what it is for everyone. No, because we're all different, and we all create um, the world around us to a different degree that is reflecting our attitude and our choice. What kind of reality am I giving my consent to? And the more mastery you can afford in your life, the more mastery you can afford in navigating how you run your energy, the more chances that you can actually affect your surroundings and become contagious in your quality of presence, in your inner peace. It's a cliche, but it is, that inner spine, that emotional um, tranquility that only comes from the intimate connection with the source from which you came. I'm not talking any specific religion or deity or God, whatever you call it or how you want to envision it. There is some kind of supreme intelligence that is behind all of it, all of it. So where are we coming from? We don't have to disconnect from that place. And if we're disconnected, we can restore and recover the connection with that unseen, time space, timeless, spaceless um, space in between spaces. How do you describe it? Our human mind doesn't comprehend, doesn't have a language to grasp the true nature of infinity. But we can establish the reference point within the nervous system, how to be connected and source the energy from it and allow ourselves to be nurtured and replenished and um, guided and be advised from that place in you, that place in the center of gravity of your beingness, that allows you to really discern what is right, what is wrong for you personally. Not right and wrong for everybody, but you can only be responsible for yourself.
So for
How
somebody
you
who's in that fear, somebody who's way off track, somebody who's so disconnected from their inner noise, how do they get to that reference point? Where that's what I'm so shocked about is that reality doesn't matter. People are being told what to think despite their actual, but there's no bodies collecting. Most people don't know anybody who's been sick. It doesn't matter their actual reality. They are being told what to think and to ignore what's actually happening. How does someone connect with that reference point to reset, to go within?
In my experience, I wish I would say, listen to somebody's opinion or watch a movie. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. When somebody is deep in the hypnotic trance of a specific kind, um, only that which put them in the trance can get them out of it. So there is nothing you or I can say that will make them see things differently. That is the whole point. In life as a shamanic journey, every soul has its own turning point,
Mm,
and you have to come to a certain place, certain dead end within your own system to understand that, oh, there is dead end. There is nothing for me here, that I probably either just stay here and die here, or I need to go search for something else. And unless a person is at that point, there is nothing you or I can do.
And I kind of feel like that's where we're at as a human collective. We're at that dead end and are we gonna see it? Are we gonna see that, wow, this isn't getting us anywhere. Look at what's going on. Or because I really feel like if this would be called off today, it was all hoax. Oh, sorry, we didn't mean it. We all got it wrong. I think we'd be going back to what we did that got us here in the first place. And I don't think we would change. Like we have to be brought to our knees sometimes to make that change. And for some people, it'll never happen. Not in this lifetime, might not. But I feel like that's where we at as humanity. Is the scum needs to rise to the top, and we have to see this. It needs to be revealed. So it's just that nature of humanity. It's so frustrating sometimes. It's like we have to suffer to see. Why is that? Why can't we just get it on our own? It's just, oh, I don't know. Where do you see this going? Do you have a prediction or do you have a feel for where this is going? Do you care? What do you see with where we're at right now?
I see that those who are ripe to wake up are waking up in unprecedented numbers. And it's working. A lot of people are at that dead end point when all of a sudden they're snapping off. That hypnosis is not working anymore because they reached the bottom. There is nowhere to go staying in that place. So that's what I see. And I also see that um, a lot of people are still walking towards it, and they're pretty far um, from reaching any kind of turning point. And what I know is that everyone really has to make their own decisions. It's not something that you can make that decision for somebody else.
No.
That is a nature of the soul's journey, that Nobody else's experience or expertise or opinion matters until it's a moment of ripeness, the moment of truth, when, okay, here I am. I want to know.
Mm.
I want to be. I want to love. It all comes down to the capacity to love. A lot of people are still looking for the experience of being loved, asking, demanding, bribing, placating, pretending just to get somebody to like them or you know be a companion. The reality is that the soul is truly after its own ability to love, its own ability to open and experience the richness and bliss of capacity to love. Unconditional, just capacity, not somebody specific for something specific, just the ability to love, regardless what others are doing or saying or not doing or saying. It's it's not about who deserves my love. It's about me being able to exist in that state of surrender and connection with the source and openness and great vulnerability in that place. So it's really in the hierarchy of values, that's the one on the very top. And in the hierarchy of fears, the one on the very top is uncertainty. Because it's much easier to live with discomfort. How many millions of people right now are willing to be alone, not without any touch, without anybody to hug, anybody to smile with, anybody to cook dinner with, anybody to just connect, just in any form, willingly isolating themselves out of fear of perceiving other people as like bags of germs. That's it's a very sad state when everybody else become just a bag of germs and fear of coming into close contact. That's But that is less scary than the uncertainty of going out on the street without a mask, uncertainty of connecting with somebody and having a cup of coffee with them, having conversation, giving them a hug, the uncertainty of what the tomorrow brings. And that is the same mechanism at stake why abused women stay with their abusive boyfriends or husbands. They know that reality. It's uncomfortable, but the stepping out of it is too much uncertainty. That's scarier than the threat of being killed on a daily basis. So we are now in the top percentile of the fear pyramid. We are in that great transition, great uncertainty that activates our collective birth trauma. As a species, we have a collective birth trauma that is extremely activated right now. It's never been that activated because of the scale. There were wars and elements and all kinds of tragedies that activate our birth trauma to different degree. But at this point, the entirety of the population of this planet is activated and triggered.
So how does that look? What do you mean when in more concrete terms, what does that look like when the collective birth trauma is activated?
Well, in order to neutralize a birth trauma, you need to activate it really quickly, quickly. Then you need to actually deal with it and introduce a completely different range of frequencies. And there it comes in. We're in the extreme polarities right now because more and more people are activated into that state of um, awareness and that quality of presence that is required to activate it. And greatly it is on the behalf of the young ones, the new babies that are now born, that are not disconnected from the source. See, that's the thing. um, when we're born, we're meant, we have the capacity to maintain the connection with that from which we are arriving slowly. Throughout the 9 months of gestation, we are um, forming, literally, we're forming the body, but we're still maintaining the connection with that from which we are emerging, from that parallel reality, parallel universe, however you want to call it. So as we are born and fully emerge into this reality, we don't have to disconnect from it, but we get to disconnect due to the sensory overload on the exit, because we go into that extreme experience of all our senses get short-circuited because of how the delivery is done. And um, we are shifted into that stupor, that dissociation state that is well studied and well known in the field of psychology. That, if you shock somebody, they go into this kind of, you know what I'm talking about, the state of dissociation.
Yeah.
So from that place, it's work to get back in that sense of connection. It's work. It's possible, but it has to be um, provided by the mother, by everyone who is around, by the whole environment. It has to be very soothing and gentle, and lots of holding, kissing, touching, all of that. It's a very kinesthetic experience to get back into our senses. You can't think your way into it. You can't read a book about getting that. That's the problem with a lot of um, spiritual traditions, that they're too heady. There is so much of words and ritual and what one must obey and do, and there is so many rules that it fails to connect the emotional body that is actually the pathway of the connection, our emotional body. And most of the world's religions are saying disconnect your emotions, detach, ignore them, um, you know, abandon. It will be good when you die.
Right. Right. Wait till you're dead. Don't worry about it now.
Or it will be good when you get out of your body. Go into nirvana. You have to practice 20 years sitting with your naked butt on ice or in the cave somewhere, and then you learn to get out of your body, and that's where it's good. But that's not what we got the body for, to try to get out of it, because the body doesn't have a long shelf life. It will expire soon enough, and we will be in that nirvana and that bliss that we're after. But how about creating it right here? Because this earth is so gorgeous. It's so beautiful. I'm looking out the window right now. It's breathtakingly precious and beautiful, and it has everything we need for us to be happy and live in peace. We don't have to fight. We don't have to compete. We can really build a life of cooperation and mutual admiration society. It's we already tried everything else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Have we done the mutual corporation everywhere cooperation? I don't think we have. No. I want to I want to ask a question. So we're talking about that we've activated the basically the global birth trauma. And that should hopefully be a short thing, and then we need to go in and heal it and maybe give it a new reference point. So with the baby, they come in, it could be a traumatic birth, lots of touch and healing and skin to skin and breastfeeding and love and no separation. So now I'm seeing this, we're talking about how do we heal this human global scale birth trauma. We're separate, we're afraid, we're like all the things that we need to heal. And I don't think this is by mistake. I think this is clearly by design, because we know the things that add to longevity and for mental health. But what do we do? How do we heal the global birth trauma that's been activated? That sounds like a big job.
Well, one person at a time. And also, we never were as a species in um, such favorable for that position, because right now, for the first time in human history, we have a critical mass of people who are uh, aware and awakened and not disconnected. In the 80s, there were just a few pioneers here and there that could be really counted quite easily. In the 90s, it was already thousands. In the first decade of this millennia, it was millions. And right now, we have finally, for the first time in our history,
You
the
think so? You think
critical
we're there?
mass,
We've got
yeah,
that critical
critical mass of the proportion of people who are really tipping the scale. It's most of them are still very young, and they didn't come into their full power yet, so they're not counted as full presence, but they're here, they're holding the frequency, they are anchoring that healing energy. You look at them, it's like, look at your boy.
He's mad right now. My boy is mad right now because he knows, he's aware of what's going on. So,
Right,
yeah.
so that's the thing, they are fully aware of the dynamic. They don't know their power yet. We still have, a few years for them to step in
Mhm.
fully into the game. And I think maybe a lot of what's going on right now is kind of geared to slow them down.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Well,
But
that's the thing. You get the young, you remove them, you separate them, you traumatize them, and that's how you get that. It just gets easier with every future generation, right? So,
exactly, and it succeeded so far. But now it's in such numbers that they have each other. They have each other. They have the sense of rightness of their being in the body at this time on this planet. Now, in my generation, it was being born into the body was kind of a punishment. It was, you were sent to your room. It's like, yeah, you're in the endless wheel of samsara. You are kind of, when you are enlightened, you're not born anymore. That's the word on the streets, right?
right.
But it's so 80s.
80s was an ugly decade. Let's get over
It's
it.
a very outdated um, view on the incredible privilege, incredible opportunity to own the body, and the reason for owning the body at this time on this planet. It's not an accident. It's not a punishment. It's a very, very deliberate effort of the spirit to own this body, so it could be used in the name of love.
Hmm. And it gives me solace to think, to remember this is intentional. My son is here for a reason right now. I am here for a reason right now. We chose to be here right now. This is not some freaky mistake. It's when I choose to remember that, it helps to bring me solace that okay, it's right,
Right,
it's for a reason.
right. But remember, I was saying that the nature of reality is multi-layered.
Yes.
So that you are saying that in the layer in which it's true, but it coexists in the same timeline with all the other layers. And there are layers in which it's hell,
Hmm.
where all the realities of all the horrors of the pain people are capable of inflicting
Hmm.
onto each other are real. It is their reality. And there is layer where the diseases are real and rampant, and there are layers of horrible domestic violence and horrible um, abuse, sexual,
Abuse.
emotional,
Yes.
that is not related to any war zones or any catastrophes of elements. It's just the domestic um, dynamic that is pure hell. There are infinite amount of realities that are in the same timeline. So saying is anything is true in one of those layers. No matter what you say, there is a layer in which that is true.
Mm.
So in a sense, anything you can think of is real. And whose reality is real? My friend who is spending his days absolutely terrified watching the news, and he is saying, my fears are based in reality. And I'm saying, look out the window.
Right.
That reality that is so real is called virtual reality. And that virtual reality has virtual science, virtual facts, virtual imagery, virtual volume of fear. And when you look outside, my reality, I just want to turn my computer.
Let's see. Let's see. Oh, it froze. Oh, no, there we go.
Can
Okay.
you see?
Yes. Beautiful. Yes. Yes. I choose that reality. There we go.
Yes, that is. And I personally don't even know who is sick or knows somebody who is sick. Actually, just last week, a dear friend of mine, one of my graduates actually from my course in Los Angeles, she had a father who died with the official diagnosis of COVID. But it's a very strange story that she just visited him in the home, the what do you call in English, the old folks home.
Nursing home or
Nursing home. Yeah, sorry, I forgot the word. It is my second language after all.
yeah.
So she visited him. He was perfectly fine. And all of a sudden, a couple of days later, he is calling her from the ambulance saying, I tripped and I fell. And for some reason, they're taking me to the hospital. I am not even hurt that much, just a pack of ice. I was just doing fine. But they decided to take me to do x-ray, so come over, meet me there. She got there and he just died
What?
because when he got there, they plugged in, just automatically plugged in RV with the morphine uh, for pain, even though he was saying that he's not
Not
in a
in pain.
pain. And he overdosed instantly.
No. And what do you mean? And the diagnosis was
And in the line of cause of death, she has COVID.
Oh my goodness. Is she saying anything about this? Is she fighting this? Is she
I just talked to her. She's still so grief
absolutely? Yeah, of
dumbstruck
course.
and just kind of in. She's in LA. By the time I spoke with her, she was not able to like talk or do anything. She's just dealing with the funeral, with all the um, so. But the thing is, um, they said, yeah, we had a test and he showed positive.
Unbelievable. Wow. This is the criminality of what's going on. There's a
So this is talking about statistics and numbers and
yeah,
how they're rising
right.
because it was uh, he was 92. He was not a spring chick exactly, but he was totally fine. He just had a little accident that, and the test showing up positive, that it's there is a lot of questions about that test because it's so vulnerable to the timing and how exactly it's done and how many cycles they run that test. Are you're aware of this,
Very
right?
much aware of that.
You hold it a lot longer and it just gives completely distorted, untrue um,
35
diagnosis.
cycles or more can be 90 upwards
Yeah,
and 95% false positives. Very
right.
in my province here, the premier had said a while ago that they were using 41 cycles. So basically any positive should be just thrown out.
Yeah, yeah. And how can the severity of the measures that are taken depend on something so whimsical and unreliable and um, questionable? And why is it that millions of people are not willing to see it and question?
That's the
Yeah,
great
we're back to the drawing board.
yeah.
It's very, um, very complex situation we're in. So what I'm saying is that the game is really polarized right now. We have extreme fear on one hand and the critical mass of self-aware and awakened, spiritually activated people embodied at the same time. So
Are
it's
we
a
gonna,
very potent
it is.
moment in history of humankind.
Are we going to finally learn from history? I mean, you just spoke of a couple of events in history, but I mean, repeatedly over history, right? They use this
Over and over and over
over and
and over.
over again.
When the ruling party does not have an excuse to achieve what they want to achieve, they create the excuse. That's the summary of all the dynamics.
Yeah.
Let's stage the excuse and act on it as a saviors, as as rescuers, as the answer to people's problem.
Yeah.
It's old as a world. It started in ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, ancient Greece. It was exercised by everybody who had the power.
Well, and that's the thing. And that's the crazy thing. Everybody's listening to their government. Who are the biggest tyrants in history? It's the governments. It's the people in power. It's the leaders. And yet we accept it over and over and over. And it's so funny. People think they have the authority to tell you how to parent your child, who you can see when it's like we give them this authority. Nobody has the authority. Nobody has this divine authority over me to make my decisions for them, but we just gladly give it away. But those are the rules. It's like just because somebody sets a rule doesn't mean it applies to me. Thank you very much. I'll create my own rules. Thank you very much. I'm not harming anyone. I'm flabbergasted by our ability to be manipulated. And with
But that's the thing, it doesn't take much. Remember Dr. Spock that told the mothers that breastfeeding is not good?
no,
And millions of mothers hid their breasts and wrapped them around and put them away. What what in the world? Maternal instinct is one of the strongest, biggest, most powerful, most vicious instincts
right.
in nature. And just one little guy saying, "Oh no, don't do that," and they all stopped. What?
That's what I don't get. And I think it's the mother's time to rise. It's the feminine energy's time to rise. It's that protector, that nourisher, that nurturer. But I have to let go of my attachment to the speed at which this occurs. But I really believe, and that's why I'm so shocked. It's like, where are the mothers standing up for the children, for their grandchildren, for generations down the line? Where are they? And where are the men that are here to protect their families? I just feel like those masculine and feminine roles are being so muted these days that we don't know how to find them.
Well, we need to raise those men that would
We
stand
do.
by those women,
We
that
do.
would be able to protect their children so the women don't feel alone.
Mm. Hmm. Right. So, what are your last thoughts on this? We've been going for a little bit. What are your last thoughts on where we're at? Your last message.
In the meantime, carry wood, carry wood, have water,
Chop wood, carry water.
carry water. It's like, what else can we do at this point? We're just one step at a time, one foot in front of the other, one project after the other. Just don't try to take on the world's problem, because what's happening is impossible to grasp for one person. But carrying water, chopping wood is including connecting with others who are able to hold the quality of presence and staying awake, reaching out, holding hands. This is why I'm speaking with you. This is
Mhm.
why I'm giving lots of interviews actually lately, because this is time to say something. This is really, um, I don't know who will hear, how they will interpret what I'm saying. I just know that I need to say that. I need to share my piece. I'm doing it because I have to, not because you ask, not because whether it will be heard or not. It's just that piece is in me and it's asking to be spoken. So, other than that, I'm just helping my daughter take care of my grandchildren and taking care of my mom and the house and the land and my friends and dancing.
You're still dancing.
I am dancing.
Ah.
Absolutely. I'm dancing. I'm doing my best to keep my body strong, resilient, healthy, um, in joy, in love, in keeping my um, energy flowing unobstructed, just staying um, young in heart, even though the body ages. But I am making sure that um, I am really invoking my sexual nature, because it's a very big part of feeling alive and present and um, powerful. For a woman my age, um, it's very important to um, keep my sexual energy alive.
Mm.
And
So
I,
let's unpack that a little bit before we go. Let's end with that. So unpack that a little bit more because you don't hear that very much. So that's something I'd like to go more into.
well, I'll tell you, sex is better than ever.
Amazing.
Literally, literally, it is like what took me so long, but and I'm very proud sharing that because nobody told me, I was told that it just kind of dries up and falls out. And it doesn't have to. It can,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to. With proper attitude, with the proper maintenance, with the proper respect of the sacredness of my sexual energy,
Mm-hmm.
with um, my deep gratitude for it, my permission for it to flow, I feel more sexy and vibrant now than I felt when I was, I don't know, in my 30s. Yeah.
So how does connecting to your sexual energy and honoring that, how would that serve humanity if we were all to maybe explore that?
How do you explore that?
No, if we were to explore, say if everybody was like, because we're talking about, okay, let's do this, just how are we serving humanity by connecting with our own sacred sexual energy?
It's very healthy for the body,
Mhm.
and what's healthy for you is healthy for humanity.
Okay.
And it needs to be very um, respectful. It's not like, oh, give me some action. And
Right.
it's, as I said, it's a sacred energy, and it requires reverent attitude and awe and inspiration to play with with that energy and the volume of joy and pleasure that it brings. It's the sky is the limit. It's never ceasing to amaze me how much more I'm capable of when I am really um, um, giving myself permission.
Mm.
That's where it starts from, just giving permission to be wild, be be not being held back by some kind of standards or limitations, or I don't know, whatever is the habit of holding back, whatever holding patterns are favored in this decade, revise them.
Nice. Nice.
It's
Okay,
very,
folks.
very important and healing to have that sacred energy flowing through your body.
It is a powerful energy, absolutely. And I think it has the power to heal and to transform if we can harness it and really honor it, right? And really hold it as sacred rather than just sex. It's a means of connection, and in a world where we need connection more than ever before.
Yeah.
That's
And there is a kind of a gap when you're young and hormonal and sex is just and it's for the sakes of the experience, it's kind of bring it on.
right.
But then when you have a child, when you have all the responsibilities, the household and your job and everything, and just it goes down, and the bad rep is gotten because women don't really know how to build it up again after you're done with raising infants, when the sleepless nights, the milk production, when all the toll it takes if you have few children and you're permanently pregnant for a few years.
Mhm.
It's like all of that is out at a certain point, out of the picture, and you're more settled with your career, with your financial flow, you're more comfortable with menopause. The, the threat of getting pregnant is eliminated, so you don't have to like spend any energy on protection, on worrying, and the children are out of the nest, and it's playtime.
Nice. Well, and play is an optimal state for learning and for transformation. So I think that's that's amazing. So people go explore
But
that.
but it's a very different quality of the way sexual energy runs, because sex for the sake of sex is no longer uh, relevant, important, interesting. The procreational aspect is
Right.
no longer on the table. So then you go into like, okay, full stop. We already had full stop. Let's start from scratch learning the
Mhm.
body language of pleasure, the language of love, of true connection, of, and there is nothing to be um, like ashamed of, or um, there is no like, ooh, what he's gonna think of me, or it's like none of it is relevant anymore. It's just pure curiosity and experiment, exploration, uh, learning. There is so much to learn, because there is the hormonal rush in the young years when just pushed people together, and normally people end up not very skillful from that
Mm.
stage,
Mhm.
and whatever they knew how to do, they might completely forget by the time all the sleepless nights end up. And there goes that kind of um, a loss of interest, that whatever it was, well, what's the big deal? But then without the hormonal pressure and um, the any specific need for a specific outcome, there is just being real with your body, and being honest with the body, finding finding it and finding each other
Mm.
in every way that can be enjoyable and pleasing.
Okay. Well, that's an up to end on. I think we went from history and slaughter to finishing up with sex and a few things in between. So,
Just get me going.
well, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's an alley I wouldn't have thought of, but yeah, it's important. It's yeah. So, well, thank you for all your different points of view and you speaking your truth and hopefully expanding other people's realities and what they'd be willing to experience or to see as true, because we need to look through, I think, different windows. We get stuck. So, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that talk with Elena. She has a lot of wisdom to share. Birth into Being is the place to find you. Yes, birthintobeing.com.
Yeah.
Birthintobeing.com, so you can learn. Unfortunately, no workshops right now or anything like that being done. Hopefully, one day in the future, we can have that.
Well, I still have the big 16-day training in Germany on my schedule
Oh,
in
you
August
do?
this year. It's still on the table, but I don't know if it's going to happen. I am holding a vision of it's happening. Maybe we
Oh,
will loosen up the crazy rules by August. And I have a big group signed up for this training. So we're all kind of holding our breaths
Yes.
for what's the verdict? Can we travel? Can we um, gather? Because the whole venue is closed at this point.
Mm,
But it's still on my schedule. I'm holding it. And if anything, it's not canceled, it's postponed.
right.
But I hope that we won't even need to go that far.
Mm.
But also, um, yeah, well, there are hours of my interviews on my website, on my YouTube channel. So there is a lot more where this came from.
Is Birth into Being the YouTube channel name as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so check that out. Seriously, you guys, if you don't know of Elena's work, it is powerful. It's amazing. I had her here in Calgary many years ago. We had a direct experience of that, but her movie is amazing. We can transform our earth and our reality and our world through how we birth and carry our babies and how we raise them. And we don't even have to worry about thinking about changing the world. We just have to take care of ourselves and our own families. And then it just takes care of itself. So, and I think this is why I'm so happy to be re-inspired to be educating around this and spreading what little part of that I can to the world, because I feel that it's always been an important topic, but now it's more important than ever before to really bring forth, raise, support healthy, well-adjusted life that is feels right in this world in their own bodies, to make their own decisions and make up their own mind. So, and that work is largely inspired by the work of Lana Tonetti-Vladimirova, who is doing amazing things on the planet. So thank you very much.
I love you, Sasha.
Oh, thank you. I love you too.